Hello, everyone. I am now live from my current Corona bunker at home. So much looking forward to this guest today. I'll just bring him in right away. But this guy, I've been following him for 7 or 8 years, I think. So please welcome Paul.
Hi,
Hi,
thanks for
it's
having me.
thank you so much for being here. It's so
It's a
nice
great
to
pleasure.
it's so nice
Got some
to
time on
meet
my
you.
hands.
Yeah. So, first of all, as I said in the intro, I've been following your podcast for like I think 7 or 8 years now,
Amazing.
and I feel like I know you. Uh, but for all the people listening that haven't listened to you speak for the
hmm
last 7 to 8 years, can you introduce yourself a bit?
Yeah, sure. My name is Paul. I am a psychotherapist in the UK, in Birmingham, in the UK. I'm a Manchester United fan, and about 10 years ago, me and my oldest childhood friend, funnily enough, he had a website called United Rant, which was at one point like a pretty massive United blog in the very early days of
Mm.
blogging. And he it went away for a while, and then it came back. And I'd been listening to the Guardian Football Weekly a lot, and so I said to him, "You know what? We should start a podcast." Well, what I actually said to him is, "You should start a podcast." And I offered to be a guest on the first week's episode. And
Mm.
10 years later, and I don't know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes later, I'm still the like one person co-hosted one other episode. I think the third or fourth episode, but otherwise it's been me and him the whole way.
Yeah. Well, what has been your greatest kind of takeaway for being? I have to say, you're a creator. What has that been?
It's a great question. So it kind of all went a bit crazy for me a few years in, because I ended up accidentally getting a job as I was training to be a psychotherapist. I had an office job, and I ended up being able to move away from that. Because I got a job as Manchester United correspondent for Bleacher Report,
Mhm.
which was wild. Like, that was not part of the plan at all. But I ended up in press boxes and in press conferences with managers, and just looking around going, oh, they've let me in somehow, just a random dude with a podcast. But um it's been, I mean, it's a huge question. I guess for me, the act of making a podcast is a kind of interesting one, because obviously we're aware that there's an audience out there, and we're lucky with a really engaged audience. Like, if we put
Yeah.
out on Twitter a call, we do questions one on one of our weekly shows, and if we put a call out for questions, we get an overwhelming response. We get more than we can do on the show. But when you're actually doing it, it's mostly just, I'm just talking to Ed about United, and I've been talking to Ed about United since 1985.
Yeah.
It's an interesting experience. And in the end, I think the best thing about it, apart, like, I've met some absolutely lovely people, so on a purely personal level, sustaining that relationship with Ed, as we grow up, and busy lives, and he has 3 children and a kind of fancy job. So, like, we have an excuse to talk to each other twice a week that we probably wouldn't have otherwise, which has been lovely.
Yeah. Did you get the writing job at Bleacher Report as a result of the podcast?
Yeah. So this I was really short of money, and I put a shout out on Twitter saying, "Has anyone got any writing gigs going?" Like, this was because what I meant, because I've written a lot over the years, and I'd
Yeah.
studied screenwriting, and that was something at one point that I really wanted to do as a career, until I had a sort of pretty big career reinvention when I was about 30. But so I'd written loads. What I meant was, can anyone pay me 25 quid to write a blog post about Man United? But what happened was, a friend of mine was working for Bleacher Report at the time, and he put me in touch with their managing editor
Mm.
then, their then managing editor, a guy called Will Tidy, and he, like, followed me on Twitter, and over about 6 months, the friend that had originally put me in contact with them had a terrible time writing for them because it was a messy experience and left. And somehow his recommendation of me meant that I got his job basically after. I mean, he was not fired; he quit. I have to say, so I didn't
Yeah.
steal his job after he did a nice thing for me. But yeah, no, that was as a direct result of the podcast, and that went from like a contributing writer writing. I think I was writing 500-600 word articles or equivalent a week to at one point I was doing 10. And that was often like one big long form piece and a few short form pieces. This was like a huge part of my life for 2 or 3 years, right? Was writing about, well, I think, 3.5 years was
Yeah,
writing about
you
United.
stopped doing that at the end of 2017.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that was because Bleacher Report shuttered the division, because it's interesting actually with what's happening. This is super football-y, so sorry for anyone that's not a massive football fan, but football media-y really. So the Athletic, which is this big kind of big push and a sort of fascinating experiment really, where this big American company with loads of venture capitalists backing
Mhm.
behind them started in American sports, offering subscription sports writing, kind of looking at the newspaper model and going, I'm not sure how long this is going to be around for, and I'm not sure it's really serving the interests of especially fans of smaller teams. I guess I
Yeah.
would say smaller market teams in the US. But they started a massive push in football here this season, and they kind of have not embedded reporters, but reporters based in every Premier League club, some of whom have extensive experience in those areas and some of whom are a bit more like transplantee. But the thing that's kind of interesting about this is what Bleacher Report were trying to do, but Bleacher Report were trying to do it by paying a bunch of freelancers a relative pittance rather than like assembling a team and making them full-time staff and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And funnily enough, um, in the end, I don't think for Bleacher Report it was financially viable. When they sacked us, this is so funny. Like being a creative is real funny. When they sacked everyone, the guy because I worked with a lot of really lovely people there who really cared about the work and did some good work, but
Yeah.
also some people that don't fit into that category. So the guy sent an email around to everyone saying, which when he sacked everyone, he said, we're kind of changing direction to take advantage of our huge social reach. And I was like, you're sacking me a week before Christmas, bragging about the number of Twitter followers you have. This is not a good look. Anyway, that in my life, like, fortunately, I never wanted to be a football writer. It was genuinely something because I was working. I'd started to work, and so we're in my therapy room right
Mhm.
now. I'd started to practice in my own private practice, and people used to ask me, "Oh, are you going to go football right? Are you looking to go football writing full time?" And it's like, "No, I'm looking to be a full time psychotherapist." And the football writing meant that I could start to offer people flexible sessions, and I didn't have to keep office hours, and it was invaluable, enabling me to start my own practice, which is what I really cared about.
So your presence on Twitter gave you the opportunity for a lifetime, and yet you you're not on Twitter right now, are you?
No, and I think there's two things. So one,
Yeah.
I think that I genuinely don't believe that you could get the job that I got or the equivalent by a mate recommending you from Twitter now without a pre-existing profile. I know it was only 2014, but the landscape's changed a lot in 6 years. I was talking to a
Yeah.
friend of mine who I guess should probably remain nameless, who said we'll be the last group that get writing jobs, not least of which because there are just no, like, don't try and be a writer, learn to make video. Like, that's
Yeah.
the kind of, the advice that I would give anyone in that situation, unless you're unbelievably passionate about writing and prepared to write about basically anything for basically anyone.
For
um
basically nothing.
yeah, although I mean, yeah, I think there is still a living to be made, but it's a hard living to be
Yeah.
made.
I
And
think
yeah.
for a writer right now, because I run my own agency in Norway. We have 14 employees. I think that for me employing another text writer, they would also need to have like vast amounts of competency within SEO or ad copywriting or anything like that. Because if you don't have that as of now, I I think you should try to do something else, or at least try to get competency within that.
That's what I would say. It's rather than like do something else. I was kind of joking about like start making videos, but actually learn to get comfortable talking in front of a microphone, talking in front of a camera.
Yeah.
Genuinely learn to edit video, because if you can watch this live stream, you can learn to edit video. It's
Yeah.
not hard. You know, the technical barrier is just non-existent now. Like when I did my first degree in '98. We started a digital video company, and we had to spend thousands and thousands of tens of thousands of pounds on equipment just to be able to cut DV video. And now, of course, like, you know, you want to make a feature length movie, great, go for it. You know. So you were asking about Twitter. This is a huge issue, I think, for people. Like I genuinely consider myself very lucky that my ambitions are not in the creative fields, because I think having to have a presence on social media is one of the worst things about being an individual creative now. Like if you are somehow in a position where you can be a creative and not have to be on social media, oh my goodness, that is an incredible blessing. Because I genuinely think, it's really complicated, and it's not equally the same in all industries and across the boards. But I think Twitter in particular is just fundamentally a destructive medium. And I'm not even talking, so when you work in football, like
Yeah.
football is just a toxic hellhole.
Really, really.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like that's well, it's not fine, it's awful,
Yeah.
but that is what it is. But I actually think so from a kind of mental health perspective,
Yeah.
um we are not wired to consume tiny bites of information over and over and over and over and over and over again. The reason that I deleted my Twitter account the first time around was because I'd always kind of thought, well, once I don't have this Bleacher Report job, I don't need to have a Twitter account. The podcast is sustaining, and at the time, certainly, we weren't even really trying to grow the podcast. We were just doing it because we liked it. We had an audience that was fine for us. We made enough from Patreon to pay for hosting, to give Tom some money, to help a little bit with the rent money, things like that.
Yeah.
But we weren't looking to particularly grow. So I was delighted to be able to delete my Twitter account just because of the kind of bombardment of toxicity and negativity. And for me personally, one of the things that I always found most difficult, this is a personal thing, was
Yeah.
just being misunderstood, which happens all the time. Like when you write about football, most of the time what you write about gets misconstrued, misunderstood, and I would just find that really tiring personally, because it's a thing I don't really like. But ultimately, I actually think Twitter is just like I said, I think it's a fundamentally destructive medium, because those kind of repeated parcels of other people's lives and other people's thoughts, and the kind of intense schizophrenic nature of like one tweet about someone in a personal crisis, followed by a tweet about football, followed by a funny joke, followed by, and you're processing this at lightning speeds. So I'm
Yeah.
not even talking about the toxicity of what you receive. I'm just talking about using a medium which is has information overload baked into its kind of fundamental fabric. So yeah, I feel very lucky not to have to use it.
Yeah. I use Twitter like this much, mostly just posting my auto posting my Instagram posts also to Twitter. But in Norway, Twitter is quite small. It's just basically if you are a journalist, or if you want to speak to a journalist, you use Twitter. Uh, Basically, not that much else. But what's your favorite social media then, if you have one?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I like Instagram best,
Hmm.
because I find it really easy to curate, and there's something nice about the delineation between Instagram stories, which I think fit very much into that bubble of information overload, and
Yeah.
the kind of daily activity, and the fact that people do tend to curate what they post on their actual Instagram feed. Now, at the moment, I'm trying to minimize contact with it, generally speaking, because I'm pulled between feeling an intense desire to like connect with people and be engaged with my friends and make up for the fact that, you know, literally can't leave the house.
Yeah.
Not quite literally, but near enough.
Almost.
Certainly can't
Yeah.
leave the house for social reasons. And wanting to retreat a little bit away from the barrage of fear and pain and, you know, and just the huge background levels of anxiety, which I feel like you kind of do need to somewhat distance yourself from for your own good, really. But to go back to the, like, let's say we were talking about 6 weeks ago, and things were a little more normal, then I would say that I like Instagram because I follow cute dogs, nature photographers, some friends and family,
Yeah.
and cricket. I follow loads of cricket stuff on Instagram.
Cricket. Ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I just really like cricket.
Not the insect, the sport.
Not the
Yeah.
insect, the sport. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm English.
Yeah. We have hi Twinny. I don't know who you are, but hello. Thank you for watching. Okay, if anyone has questions for me or Paul, just send them to your channel of choice, and I think we get them on screen. Yeah, we'll see. But okay, when you had the job at Bleacher Report, you had to produce quite a lot of text, quite quite quickly, and in football also you have it's like news in football, they become old quite fast. How did you do that? How did you do that?
I have no idea.
You
So
didn't have a process?
what was that? Sorry.
uh, United fan, Twinny, hello. um, you didn't have a process for like, okay, I have to sit down, I have to do this, I have to listen to this, I have to twin my thumbs, I don't know.
Yeah, so the way the structure of the week worked was at the beginning of the week on the Sunday night you would get the breakdown of what you were expected to write the following week. Sometimes their SEO team, because they were very proud of having a predictive SEO model, whereby they reckoned they had a good way of tracking what would be peaking at various different points, and that was successful sometimes and not other times. So you would have some things which were like, okay, on this day you're going to write 8, you write a listicle about Angel Di Maria stats or whatever. That's one I remember from like 2014 or 2015.
The snake.
He's just a man living his life, and he yeah, so I'm sure I would have wanted to stay under Louis van Gaal's Man United if I was Angel Di Maria, to be fair. So we would get that, and then some of them would be topical comment or post-match topical comment, or some of it would be match previews, which were very SEO driven. So that was like, you know, you've all seen it when you try and Google whether something's on TV, like live stream, and it's so useless, the information. It's like, live stream, well, if you live in America and have an NBC subscription, you can get. That's not what people are looking for when they search for live stream. Anyway, but I would try and make the actual content of the preview engaging in some way. So for the previews, we would, especially when we were in the Europa League and we were playing against clubs that I wasn't familiar with, or in pre-season, oh my god, pre-season, it's just like, right, how do I learn everything I need to know about San Jose earthquakes without doing any actual real work? Because the thing is, I wasn't being paid enough to, like, you know, carve out hours to do journalism and contact people who support San Jose earthquakes and actually put in the background work. The hourly rate would have been, I mean, it was pretty bad as it was. It would have been ridiculous by that point. I am lucky, I guess. I write pretty fast, and I can definitely churn out content once I would have those headlines. It would take me between 2 minutes and an hour to work out what the structure of the thing would generally be. I'm really bad about being disciplined about structure, which if you read my work from that time, you'll be like, oh yeah, he's really bad about being disciplined about structure, because it's one of the weaknesses of the work. But I kind of, in a way, I had to not be too precious about my byline, basically, because I was writing too much. So 600 words, that's 6,000 words a week. And often it would be more than that, because, you know, if you're doing a slide show, I could just write the absolute minimum, but it was quite challenging, because they also had like these content standards behind the scenes. So you would put the stuff on the CMS, and then their sub editors would read it, and their content standards people would read it. So they were all kind of like, the sub editors was just the style guides and things. I mean, I say just that I'm really good friends now with one of the sub editors from then, so you know, that was fine. But the content standards was like, they had very strict rules about quote attribution, and you could really tell there was kind of an American background to it, because you could see there was a kind of hyper awareness of the threat of litigation, and also they were very clearly trying to position themselves as not journalism, I think, but kind of coverage. So you had to find other journalists to quote, unless you had the first party source, which first party quote, which I did occasionally. But in my process was genuinely, after you get the headline, if it's a topical comment in the morning, you come up with something, you email their content team, they say yes or no. Then I'm sitting down for 2 hours to write 1,200 words, or an hour to write 600 words, really.
Yeah, but I'm guessing also that after a while, things go easier, because when you've done it a couple of times, it's you kind of. I've been writing some articles on my blog lately, and when I've done it a couple of times, like writing a guide for Google Ads, for instance, the structure is quite the same as writing a guide for Facebook ads. You get it in your fingers, and then then I have to have something regarding this, and so at least I'm thinking, or I'm guessing, the listicles and some of the different kinds of topics are quite, after a while, easier, at least, to churn out.
Yes, there was definitely stuff which became like automatic and easy. And of course, that was not the fun stuff. The fun stuff was when I could write a 1,200 word article about something that I cared about.
Yeah.
One of the really difficult things, you mentioned the news cycle moving. One of the big problems at United, why I'm very glad the job ended when it did, in a way, although I was not so glad at the time, because it was a big sudden shortfall. But the story just became so samey. Like, in a way, I was kind of lucky, because so Moyes was the manager when I took over. I was there for the whole of Van Gaal and Mourinho, so there was a lot of like, oh, is he going to get? Yeah. I mean, it's terrible timing, absolutely terrible timing. But I guess on the other hand, just be like, United won again, aren't we great? Which would have been before that. But so there was a lot of kind of newsy stuff. Of course, the big problem, if you want to write interesting things about football, is that people care much less about football than who their club's going to be interested in. I mean, the kind of like, I would write a 1,200 word analysis of something that I thought was like maybe kind of insightful, and maybe had something to say that was maybe of value, and I would really think about the pros, and I would make a big effort, and that would get, a quarter of the reads of 6 players United could sign in January to fill their midfield.
Gonna sign Schneiderlin. No, Wesley Schneider, of course. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Schneiderlin in my time.
Yeah.
We did actually sign Schneiderlin, and I wrote about how great that was. Oh my! Honestly, the archives of outrageously bad shouts that I've made, like so many bad predictions.
What would you say is the worst predictions or ideas you've ever had?
Danny Welbeck will be Louis van Gaal's secret weapon. I can't find that one anywhere. I've tried to Google it, but I definitely wrote it. I remember writing it because I was absolutely convinced that Welbeck would be ideal for, and I still retrospectively think he made a huge mistake. Welbeck's been hugely injury hit, but United really lacked for link-up players around the box to make Van Gaal's system work. And Van Gaal looked at the numbers and went, Welbeck doesn't score any goals, but he should have been He should have been looking at, I need someone coming in off the left who's going to actually move the ball quickly and create movement and confusion among defenders. Anyway, there's me defending my worst ever shout. That was pretty bad. Oh, I remember one other thing, actually. My very first article,
Yeah.
the headline was 4 signings David Moyes needs to make this January to save his job.
Yeah.
And I emailed back saying, I don't want to say to save his job. His job's not in any danger. He did not make it past April, but I genuinely thought it was outrageous at that point to suggest that United might sack Moyes in his first season, because it was so, you know.
Yeah, but that was also quite sudden. Not sudden. I wouldn't say sudden, but it was quite unheard of for United to do something like that. So
yeah.
yeah.
So I in retrospect, it makes sense that I made the bad shout. I was also absolutely convinced that when United's form clicked under Van Gaal in his first season, that was going to lead to a sustained period of excellent football under him.
Yeah. I am also at heart way too positive to have like I do some sports betting, but I just have to exclude everything that has to do with United because it's too costly.
Because you're not looking at the data, your heart's just saying.
Yeah. But actually, I did. But that was under Ferguson, though. I had a system that said like betting at United winning at home, and I just bet half my stack every home game, and it basically I had a couple of losses one of the seasons, but it was half my money. So in the end, I came out way on top. So, but I wouldn't do that the later years, to put it this way.
It's interesting. It's interesting that like, I'm not a gambling person, but I have a friend who's a professional poker player, and I sort of know quite a lot about sports betting because I'm interested in football and data.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me that the bookies would have made it profitable for people to bet on United winning at home during the Fergie years. That's fascinating.
Yeah, but okay. The job you have now, how would you say what you have done? Like, I might be wrong on this, but I am guessing that you talking to Ed on your podcast would actually have prepared you for some of the challenges as a psychotherapist.
Because he's out of his mind.
Sometimes, yes, but how do you think like you also you are a content creator, you talk to a lot of people. How do you think that influences your day job?
Well, I'm not sure that it influences the day job, but I think it shares skills. So I definitely think I'm a much better. In fact, I think it's mostly the other way around. I think I'm much better at my creative work because of my therapy background. Like, I'm definitely a much better interviewer because I'm a therapist. Because, like, I know I've been talking much more than I've been listening in this conversation. But generally speaking, especially if I'm interviewing someone, then I have no problem listening to them and responding appropriately and adapting and really making it about them. Like, that's completely natural because I do that all day, every day. I hope that I think one of the reasons that people like our podcast is, well, I know for sure that one of the reasons people like our podcast is because of the dynamic between me and Ed, because we're profoundly different people. And, I know that because people have told me over the years. And I hope that what I bring to it is a kind of humanist kind of approach and an understanding of human psychology that you might not get in another United podcast, and I try and bring that to the show.
Because I really like your approach there, that it's the other way around. Your skills as a psychotherapist has increased based on what you have done in your private time. I
think it's that the being a therapist. So the thing about, for me, like, being a therapist is my main creative endeavor. Like, it's an incredibly creative job fundamentally. Like, my qualification is a science qualification rather than arts qualification, but I actually don't believe it should be. I believe that they should be fundamentally arts qualifications with a big science component, because psychotherapy is about human relationships, which is much more art than science. And when you try and make it very mechanistic and replicable and all those kinds of things, you really miss out on the fact that genuinely we all do need something different. So like that's a kind of very, I mean, I also do, as in the way that I work, there's a lot of like out and out creativity in terms of storytelling and creative visualization, and providing people with like guided meditations and things like that, which are inherently creative, because I think that's, our creativity lives in the same place as our emotional world, in the
Mm.
brain, so that's all
Yeah,
in the right hemisphere. So like the two are intimately linked. If you want to help the mind, then learning to interact with it in its own language, so the
yeah.
language of metaphor and storytelling, is incredibly powerful. um
2 seconds,
no
as I
problem.
have, yeah. Well, I'm back. I'm so
Hi.
sorry. We have I have two kids, age 6 and 9, and they're of course not in school. So uh, I have to homeschool, and now she was done with some assignments. So,
Well done.
yes. Well, would you say that you rather move towards order in your daily life, or chaos? Like,
Oh, very straightforward, easy question for me. Order every single day. I think the myth that chaos breeds creativity, I think, is fundamentally a myth. I think the best thing to maximize your creative potential is to maximize your potential as a whole. Now, creativity can come about as a result of chaos, and we can use creativity to process and manage chaos.
mhm.
But from my perspective, that's like about survival rather than thriving. That's
Yeah,
about we have to do it because the chaos exists. I don't believe in cultivating chaos for the sake of creativity. I think anything that can be achieved through that can actually be achieved better and definitely more sustainably through order.
yeah,
A beautiful analogy, football analogy for this is Mourinho, right? So Jose Mourinho believes in management through conflict, and
yeah,
so will never, ever, 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 ever be able to be a sustained success anywhere, because he burns bridges. And
yeah.
he might get a little period of success, and he might be remembered as a great manager, but I strongly suspect that will all be tarnished by the fact that the second half of his career it all stopped working. Um, so yeah, order every day. Order creates peace, and peace is the best condition to create from. If you don't have the opportunity for order and peace, then creativity is a beautiful way to help get yourself out of chaos and help understand and process and manage it. But um yeah.
Do you have any systems or tips to creating more order within your own life then?
Oh yeah, wow. That's a great, yeah, loads. How long you
Good.
got? Um,
Yeah.
so one of the things is to make your home environment as peaceful and orderly as possible. So, it's really simple, but a place for everything and everything in its place is a beautiful rule,
Hmm.
because that's the best way to create a sustaining environment. Some people believe they thrive on chaos, but in my opinion, that is a misguided belief. And I mean, physical chaos. They like being in a mess when they create because they feel like that removes the restrictions. But actually, if you have space and cleanliness and order around you, there are no restrictions in place from that. Like, you should be able to mess the place up. Like, that's really
Yes.
important, but you putting it back together. So that's one thing. And structure and time. And listen, certainly when I was writing, this is something that I'm much better at preaching than doing, because I was fitting in writing jobs around seeing clients and things like that. So it was difficult. But I would at the beginning of the week diarize, like, okay, I'm going to write this here, I'm going to write this here, I'm going to
Yeah.
write that there.
Time blocking.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I don't know how you do it without it, really. If you've got a lot of freedom in the schedule, you might not need to do it, but even then, it's probably best to do it. And just simple daily rituals, like, some meditation, some making sure that you try and stick to a reasonable routine around, well, definitely a good routine around sleep is crucial. It's particularly crucial at the moment.
What would you say to the people that says, "Well, I don't need that much sleep. I can
Mhm.
actually work on much less sleep."
Well, some people can definitely work on much less sleep, but just make sure that the word work doesn't mean I can cope on much less sleep. If you're
Mm.
genuinely thriving physically and mentally, then that's fine. But if you're just coping, then you could probably then sleep is unbelievably useful and powerful and restorative. It's also incredibly good for your immune system, which is important
In
now.
this time, yeah, of course. Okay, so do you use any sort of lists or software or tools to help you stay in control of your life?
No, only Google Calendar.
Google Calendar. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I have my life mapped out in terms of my working life, and, well, when there was still a social life,
Yeah.
all that stuff was blocked
Yeah.
in that way. But I
Uh,
don't use any specific organizer tools, just because
I w-
mostly my life's not that complicated.
no. Well, how many? Okay, I might be on very thin ice here, but how many people really have very complicated lives? Some people, I
Yeah.
guess, would feel like it's complicated, but
Mhm.
in as a matter of fact, most most lives are not complicated. They just feel complicated.
Um, yeah, that's possibly true. But I think if you work 80 hours a week and have 3 children, your life is definitely needs more management than mine does. You have less room for
Yeah, yeah,
maneuver than I do.
yeah. Okay. Well, that's why I said complicated, not hectic. Because
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess I'm using complicated as a shorthand for hectic. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, because
Okay.
actually I would say my life is probably quite complicated in terms of the various different aspects of complexity. But you can make anything more simple, and it's a good idea too as well.
I use Omnifocus.
Right.
Uh, have you tried it? Have you seen it?
No, I don't even know what it is.
Omnifocus. It's one of the best task managers there is ever. It's connected to your calendar, so when you block off time, you get that into it. But everything that needs to get done, you just you take it away from your mind and you put it into your inbox. You have
Mm,
like your own inbox with every task that you need to do. And instead of using brain capacity on going around remembering everything that you need to do, you just take a load off literally and put it into your system.
So
Then
how far do you extend that? Like, do you do that with kind of basic daily management tasks like eating and washing up and doing the laundry and those kinds of things?
eating, no. Like I have my OmniFocus in front of me now. I have um, write article. What is an ad company? That's one thing I need to do. And then I can tag it with it's a to do item. And since everything is at home right now, it's also tagged at home.
Yeah.
But you can kind of you can tag things like work, and then when your GPS reaches work, then the task becomes viable, because if it's something you need to do at a certain place, you don't need to be bothered down with remembering that task when you're not at the place or the situation when you can actually solve it.
That's interesting.
And I have like changed the linens. Remember to shower the kids. Have a talk with a coworker of mine, and then here I can tag all the people that are involved in a task. So if me and you work together, for instance, I would tag all the tasks that you had to be involved in with Paul. So next time we have a meeting, I would just pull up my Omnifocus and I would say, Paul, okay, I have 4 things.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sounds great.
yeah, and then you can have due dates, you can have defer until, you can have you can have recurring tasks, because some things you do every week, some things you do every day, and I love the feeling of just ticking everything off. It's amazing.
What's the promo code?
No, if you want, please come to me and we can make a deal. No, I love it, but any kind of task management program that I can do stuff like that with, I love it. And OmniFocus is the best thing I've found so far.
Do you feel like it frees up space in your brain for creativity?
Yes, brain space.
Interesting.
It's because like I need to go around remembering all sort of things that it's not actually necessary for me to go. If there's something, for instance, once every month my company has like a gathering where we go through, okay, what's happened last month, what are we doing next month, is everybody happy, and it's really nice. But if I think about, maybe I should say something about this and this, then I can just add it to my OmniFocus and I can forget it.
Yeah.
And then I don't need to use brain space on going around remembering it, which is very nice.
It's interesting because one of the things that I definitely believe, this is related but different,
Yeah.
is that emotional well-being is an amazing agent for capacity. So
Yeah.
like if most of us are carrying a degree of either overt or subtle pain as a result of the consequences of particularly our early lives. Like
Mhm.
most people with the best will in the world don't get everything they need when they're children. Like that's because it's really hard to give a child everything they need. It's pretty much impossible. So most of us are carrying stuff with us, and I've certainly found my own experience is that the more I've dealt with my stuff, the more capacity I have. So like there's
Yeah.
definitely a time in my life where there's no way I could have written thousands of words every week because I just didn't have the mental capacity to be okay enough
Yeah.
to do it. And I definitely think like one of the things I think a lot of creative people fear when it comes to things like therapy in particular is that if you do something like that, your creativity might go away or your creativity might diminish because actually your pain is a tremendous source of inspiration and motivation for creativity. But my experience, both on the receiving end and as someone who's worked with a lot of creative people, is that actually you thrive, your creativity, there's more room, and your work might change, but it's not going to be less meaningful, less impactful, and you certainly won't have less inspiration, less
No.
drive to produce.
Yeah, I feel like, no, I don't feel. I think different. I think that we have like a brain bandwidth, and when you have a lot of things to remember, you use some of that bandwidth so you can't do other things. And if you have like baggage from earlier, that also takes up parts of the bandwidth. So the more things you have like that, the less bandwidth you actually have to do whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah. And that's another reason why I kind of go for order over chaos every day, because I don't think, I'm absolutely certain that chaos uses up bandwidth. And I think, creativity is very specific, and artists in particular. So, there's a difference, right, between a creative and an artist.
Yes.
Potentially. But I think a lot of artists feel a need to live right on the edge of their sensitivity and almost push the barriers of sanity in some ways.
Yeah.
And I've always felt, looking at those people, there's another way to make amazing art. Like, if you have the gifts and capacities that you have, what you could do if you were well would be extraordinary,
Yeah.
and that's not to diminish the incredible art that is made out of pain, because that's obviously huge.
Have you seen Doctor Who with Van Gogh episode?
No,
Okay. Have you seen Doctor Who? I'm
I mean,
guessing.
I've seen some episodes of
Yeah.
Doctor Who. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not a massive Doctor Who person, but
Okay. Me and the kids, big Doctor Who people, and
great.
they have. There is this one episode where they go back in time and visit Vincent van Gogh and see the pain and chaos within him. And
Mm,
the actor who portrays Van Gogh is so amazing at doing this.
mm,
And the pain he is feeling, and you just want to help him so that he can continue to produce and get
mm.
well. But it's, yeah, okay, this suddenly turned very dark, or not dark, but yeah. But okay, let's go over to lighter things. Is there three things you can't do without in your life?
Yeah, water. Oh, you've probably seen me
Yes.
drinking water, 4 pints of water a day minimum, and for me, it's more than that because I'm pretty tall and I've lost some weight, but I'm still carrying some, so extra water. So I'd say that this is the number one thing that I can't do anything that I do without. Um, uh, what kind? Because I could answer this in lots of different ways. What
Yes.
kind of things do you mean?
Whatever way, whatever thing you like. Are you addicted to your phone? Do you have a certain blanket you need to get sleep? I don't
Oh,
know.
okay. No, I reckon that, yeah, well, I'm definitely addicted to my phone, but I'd be happy not to be. So
Okay. Yeah.
that would be fine. Because I really liked being addicted to anything. So yeah, I would say the support of, in my case, my supervisor in practice. I
Mhm.
would be really in. I would not relish being without that.
Yeah.
Um, and um, I guess uh, the self-discipline to do what I need to do, whether that's exercise for the body or for the mind, or whether that's menial stuff and doing what needs to be done because it needs to be done, whatever it might
Mhm.
be. Like, the thing that I'm really grateful for is it's not perfect by any means, but I do have a significant amount of self-discipline to draw upon when I need it.
Oh, cool. Uh, Hi, Orillamas111. Nice that you're also watching. Uh, okay, I saw your phone, but I didn't catch. Is it? Are you an Android guy or an iPhone guy?
Yeah, I've got a cracked iPhone 6 here for work. And I've got a Pixel 3 XL.
Okay.
Um,
So both, but most Android.
yeah, I alternate basically. So I think I had a iPhone 3GS and an iPhone 6, and then I had some Samsung phones. But I think I'm probably Pixel for life now for a while.
Oh,
I really like. It's unbelievably good value for money compared to the iPhone, and indeed compared to the Samsungs, which I have had lots of Galaxies, but I never really liked one of them. I never loved that phone. I
hmm.
think that iPhones are unbelievable for, like, developing this emotional relationship with them.
Yeah,
There's this
the
unbelievable.
feel of quality.
Yeah, but it's not quality. It's more insidious than that. There's something about the special sauce that Apple have got that's like, this is going to be buttery smooth and easy, and there's not going to be any barriers or complexity to any of this.
Yeah, you can almost feel it when you're opening the case. Just the way the case is just smooth. It's just, this is something else.
Yeah. But ultimately, like, I will take value for money over that every single day. And of course, I mean, this is the biggest phone discussion cliche in the book, but the Android phones do stuff, and then 5 years later, iPhone goes, "Hey, we're doing this amazing new thing," and it's like,
It's totally new.
yeah, exactly. But anyway,
Mm.
that's mostly I use my phone to make actual human phone calls. I know that's pretty radical,
What?
but I
What?
use yeah, and for photos, because it has been so nice to just get better and better and better and better photos in your
Yeah.
pocket the whole time. That's been unbelievable. Because I've always liked taking photos and I've never had a good camera. So, well, now I do, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. I always end my my streams with the Proust questionnaire from inside the actor studio.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do this.
What is your favorite word?
um, I think that my favorite word, when all is said and done, is probably peace. And more specifically, I think probably this is really like maximum hippie, but probably the word shanti, which is the Hindi word for peace.
What is the word you like the least?
Um, mm, there's a lot of bad ones out there. I mean, the words I really like the least are words that are used for purposes of hurt and denigration and those kinds of things.
Hmm. What things are you getting rid of?
I just got rid of loads and loads of clothes that either don't fit anymore or that I kept for years and years and years out of just inertia.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing. I think my next mission is to go through my kitchen from top to bottom and work out what I actually need and what is just the detritus accumulated over the years.
Hmm. What things do you dislike?
Should we go for? Let me think of something petty that I dislike rather than something, because like racism, like
Yeah.
it is a thing that I very strongly dislike. I don't really like celery, and I wish I liked celery,
Yeah.
but I'm just not a fan.
I like the texture. I don't like the taste.
Yeah, I think that's why I wish I liked it, because
Yeah.
crunchy, nice,
Mhm.
got a good kind of hit of moisture, but
It's good if you have like a good dip you can dip it in, but then the health aspect kind of is
yeah,
removed.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, I don't like celery. I
yeah.
tell you what, one that's slightly more serious, that is very deep and intense in me. I don't like the fact that humans eat meat at all. Like that is if I had a magic wand.
Are you
That
vegan?
yeah, I am about 95% totally plant-based, and
Oh,
there'll be occasions where I'll stray slightly in very specific circumstances, but I wouldn't eat meat for all the money in the world, really.
okay. Yeah. My wife is veget pescatarian,
Okay,
uh, but I eat meat sometimes, but as a family of four where one is pescatarian, it's not that
it's
much.
I don't have any judgment for people that do it because it's so normal. Um, but I genuinely wish that everyone would wake up one morning and go, "Oh, this is weird. Why do we do this? We don't have
But
to."
but okay, I have two questions regarding that. One, Uh, do you think that, or first, your reason for it, is it because of energy waste or animal cruelty or a
No,
combination?
humans don't need to eat meat, so why would we kill animals to eat? Like it's really simple. It's like we don't need to do it, so why would
Okay,
we?
my old meat-based person would say, well, if God didn't plan for us to eat meat, then why would he make it taste so fucking great?
Oh well, this is an interesting question. There are I guess arguably lots of things that humans are drawn to that they don't need to do, that aren't good for them for one
Yeah,
reason or another.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I just like see. so I tried like very nascent when I was about 14. I tried to be vegetarian and just I wasn't particularly well supported, and it was not easy to do. But then when I was in my early 20s, I was just like, what am I doing? I remember going through a field in spring and seeing all the lambs hopping about in the field, and like there's a cognitive disconnect for me of like, well, this seems like something we should look after and protect and be kind to, not something we should kill and cook. Like, it doesn't matter if it's delicious, it's lovely, so let's leave it to it, kind of thing.
Yeah, that sounds like your inner hippie coming through. Yeah.
Well, I kind of feel like that isn't actually, and I feel like that's the thing that I dislike, I guess. It's, to me, it's really sad that isn't just a global, universal opinion.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and I think you if me and you jumped like 100 years in the future, I think us killing animals and eating meat would be something that people 100 years in the future would look back and say, what the fuck were they doing? Didn't they know? Didn't they understand this? But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
What's your favorite sound?
Running water, like running water in almost all its forms: stream, waterfall, rain on a window, like just the waves crashing. Running water.
What sound do you hate?
I don't love polystyrene squeak, but I don't hate. I definitely know people that hate it a lot more than me. Oh, you know, when you're playing video games and you're on party chat with people, my friend has got headphones that when you plug them into charge, they buzz in everyone else's ears.
Yeah.
That, I hate that noise so much.
What's your favorite curse word?
So people that listen to podcasts know I don't curse. So, but if I had to listen to a curse word, it would be Samuel L. Jackson and the curse word of his choice.
Yeah. Okay. If you had a profession outside of what you have now, what would it be?
I'd love to. I'd still like to do this. Maybe I would like to make movies, because I love being on movie sets. I love the job of direction. I've made a few documentaries, and I love making movies. So I think if I wasn't doing this, that's what I would be doing.
What profession would you not have?
Anything in the meat industry, anything like butcher, abattoir, anything like that I couldn't do. But also anything in the gambling industry as well. Like that would be out for me.
If heaven exists, what would you have God say to you when you get there?
I absolutely know you tried your best.
Oh, nice. Thank you so much for joining me today, Paul.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
It's been a blast. For all you guys listening, I would recommend checking out No Question About That, Paul's podcast. It is a bit on the heavy side on football, but
a little bit. Like, if you're not a Manchester United fan, do not listen to our podcast. Like, it's not, if you are not like somewhat obsessed with Man United, this is not for you.
No,
That's
okay.
the beautiful thing about podcasts, right? They can be super niche.
Okay, thank you so much. And to all other people, I will be live back again tomorrow. Actually, now with the Corona times, I have suddenly more time for this. Speak to you later.